Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the cars.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, but tonight with me, Christopher Hope. Coming up on the show tonight, Donald Trump has warned Iran that the United States is locked and loaded and will intervene if Tehran kills any more anti-regime protesters. What does that mean for Britain, and how will things change if the US responds? What does 2026 have in store for our politicians? I'll be joined by polling guru Lord Hayward for his predictions in England, Wales and Scotland ahead of a momentous year for elections. A former senior Downing Street aide has accused Whitehall of chasing fringe causes instead of serious governing, as the PM faces fresh questions after changing his judgment about welcoming a controversial activist to Britain. A former number 10 advisor will be with me to talk through how this could have happened. And what's the key to a successful New Year's message from our political leaders?
Things have been tough in Britain for a while. For many, life is still harder than it should be.
OK, that's how Sir Keir Starmer did it. But how does that compare with leaders around the world? I'm also joined by my panel, the political commentator Kai Wilshaw and the former Conservative Minister Heather Wheeler. As ever, let me know your views. Go to gbnews.com/your say. You can get involved by scanning the QR code now, just here, yes, right. But now it's time for the news, of course, with Katie Bowen.
Good evening. Your latest news headlines from the GB newsroom. Swiss authorities say that the fire which killed 40 people at a ski bar in Crans, Montana, appears to have started from sparkler candles placed in champagne bottles. Authorities have given an update on the tragedy today, confirming 71 of the injured are Swiss nationals, 14 are French and 11 Italian. The death toll currently remains at 40, with at least 119 people injured. Photos emerged earlier today seeming to show the moment the ceiling of the Constellation bar set alight. Officials have described the fire as a tragedy for the whole of Europe. A former pupil of a British school has been identified as among the missing. Charlotte Nidham previously attended Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire. Most of the victims of the fire are thought to be young people, but identification of the bodies is expected to take several days. The driver of a car involved in the fatal car crash which injured boxer Anthony Joshua in Nigeria has been charged with dangerous driving. The Ogun State Police Command have released a statement saying that the driver of the Lexus SUV, 46-year-old Adenyi Mobolaji Coyote, has been charged. Joshua has been discharged from hospital. The two men who died were his close friends and team members, Sina Gami and Latif Ayadeli. President Donald Trump has told Iran that the US is locked and loaded and will intervene if Tehran kills any more anti-regime protesters. It comes as at least 6 people have been confirmed dead on the 5th day of spreading unrest across Iran. A severe economic crisis has sparked violent protests in cities across the country, the biggest protests in the last 3 years. Riot squads in Tehran have opened fire on demonstrators who pledged they won't back down. An Islamist murderer who took a prison officer hostage has been awarded a £240,000 taxpayer-funded payout. Fuad Awali was transferred to a special separation unit for the country's most dangerous prisoners after he and another convict ambushed a jail worker and threatened to kill him. Awali used Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights to claim that his segregation, designed to prevent him harming officers and radicalising inmates, had breached his right to a private life. Justice Secretary David Lammy has now agreed to pay £7,500 in compensation and £234,000 in legal costs after the convicted killer stated he had suffered severe depression. And snow has hit Britain, covering large parts of London, Hertfordshire, Northamptonshire and Cambridgeshire. A yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place for sections of the UK. Meanwhile, an amber snow warning for northern Scotland is also in place. Travel disruption is expected as the wintry weather moves southeastwards. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Welcome to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, with me, Chris Hope, sitting in for Matt Goodwin. Now, Donald Trump has warned Iran that the US is locked and loaded and will intervene if Tehran kills any more anti-regime protesters. Writing on his Truth Social website, the president said that if the Islamic Republic continued to kill peaceful demonstrators, the US would come to their rescue. Protests have spread across cities in Iran this week, triggered by soaring prices and the rapid collapse of the country's currency. Iran's security forces have escalated their crackdown, including opening fire on crowds. At least 7 people are reported to have been killed. Joining me now to discuss this is the Tory MP and former Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat. Mr Tugendhat, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. This is very, very worrying. What should we make in the UK about what's going on in Iran?
Well, Chris, look, it's good to be with you. I think we should make 2 things. One, clearly protesters are calling for freedom. This is a vicious regime that since 1979, as you know, has not only murdered many Iranians, particularly executing women who wouldn't wear the veil, or beating women who wouldn't wear the veil, and executing any dissidents or gay men by and large. But they've also exported violence. You know, they've caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in Syria, tens of thousands of people in Yemen, and they've tried to kill people here in the UK. As you know, there was an MI5 warning, I think we spoke about it not very long ago, that said that there've been over 20 serious attempts at assassination.
But how should we, if I may push you on this, Tom, how should we respond to what's going on? If Donald Trump steps in, do we follow suit?
No, I don't think we should. I think this is the Iranian people who have the right to determine their own future, and we should be ready to assist should the regime fall, and they need support in rebuilding the country. But I don't think that we should be looking to intervene. I mean, we've got a history of intervention in Iran, sadly, over 80 years ago, that didn't always go very well. So I think that Britain shouldn't be involved.
And we're seeing support from Kemi Badenoch for those protesters, and we're seeing some footage now of what's going on the streets of Tehran. I think we can show that clip now, although that statement there from Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader. Obviously, it's becoming increasingly a UK political story, what's happening on the streets of Tehran. You did tweet earlier, Tom Tugendhat, about what happened 40 years ago when we had those chants, death to the Shah. Now we're hearing long live the Shah. It seems quite extraordinary, this.
It's quite a turnaround. And look, the reason I think Kemi's absolutely right to be standing with the protesters and to be expressing her support is because the reality is what we need to be seeing here is we need to see Iran stop exporting violence and start to become a normal country again. You know, Iran exports, or at least it used to export, more than 6 million barrels a day, about half as much as Saudi Arabia. If that oil returned to the market, every Brit would effectively get a massive boost to the economy because it would cut the cost of your fuel, it would cut the cost of manufacturing, food would be cheaper. You know, it's a hugely important thing for us, and it's hugely important for the Iranian people.
But it could make the Middle East even more unstable if you have a regime change in Iran. I mean, or is it better than what we have at the moment?
Well, it could do. Of course, that's possible. You know, the Iranian state is an empire in many ways. About half the population, a little over half the population is Persian, a little under a third is Azeri, and there's various other different ethnic groups, including Baluch and Arabs and so on. But the reality is that this is a regime that has tried to kill hundreds of thousands of people around the Middle East. For years, they've killed Lebanese and Syrians. They've tried to kill Israelis. They've killed Brits around the region. You know, let's not pretend that this regime is any panacea. It's not. It really isn't. And, you know, after the attacks this few months ago when the Israelis and the Americans knocked out a few of their senior generals, and about a year ago when a helicopter crash killed the old president of Iran, Raisi, the regime has really felt like it's tottering. Now, I don't know if these protests are going to be enough to push it over, but the reality is we are seeing a very, very vulnerable regime being pushed to the limits. And
it's driven by economic issues, isn't it, with the currency? Right. And that's, of course, what drives so many revolutions, if that's what happens. Is Iran going to be then...
I'm going to surprise you to hear that bad politics lead to bad economics, and bad economics can lead to changes in government.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't be the first to learn that lesson.
But where we sit then at the very beginning of 2026, Iran could become the next flashpoint if we get towards some form of Ukrainian peace deal. We're told we're over 90% there between the two parties by the US administration. Should we be watching Iran very closely from now on?
We should. I'm always slightly cautious. Now, look, I have nothing but respect for the Americans in trying to bring peace between into Russia, into Ukraine, with the Russian aggression there. But you know, let's just be clear. You know, we've been 90% there for about a year, and it hasn't noticeably moved. Now, Iran has been supplying drones and weapons to Russia for the best part of 3 or 4 years now. In fact, for longer, including various other forms of missiles. So, you know, if Iran was to get knocked out, that would be a hell of a help for the Ukrainians. Yes. It would also be a real blow to the Chinese because they've been sanction busting, effectively buying cheap sanctioned oil off the Iranians. And if Iran's oil is unsanctioned, which it would be, of course, if the regime were to change, then what you'd see that oil flowing freely. China would have to pay full price.
So regime change in Iran would be good, more democracy in the Middle East, but the risk for the West is getting drawn into what could be a very difficult situation.
Well, I'm pretty clear we should not be drawn in. I mean, there's no, the reality is we wouldn't help, we would make it worse. And so what we should be doing is supporting our allies in the region, standing with the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and other countries like that, Bahrain, who've often been threatened, Kuwait, who've often been threatened by Iranians. And we should make sure that we are keeping ourselves alert because the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the sort of special forces of the Islamic regime in Tehran, have regularly tried to kill British soldiers and British diplomats. Indeed, they've had a go at me on a few occasions. And so we need to just be alert that they're not going to try something to distract at a time when they're under pressure.
Tom Tugendhat, the former Security Minister in the last Tory government. Thank you for joining us tonight on Matt Goodwin on GB News Tonight. Thank you. I'm joined now by the former Labour Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. Jeff Hoon, thank you also for joining us tonight. We do appreciate it. What's your take on this? Obviously, the UK government must tread carefully in this, but it must be a good thing if democracy could be on its way to going to Iran.
I agree with a great deal of what Tom Tugendhat has just said, and certainly it would be in everyone's interest for the Iranian regime to be overthrown, for some return to democracy if that is possible, but at the same time recognizing that the real power in Iran lies with the clerics, with the mullahs, and with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And these are brutal people who've been prepared to kill tens of thousands of their own people who demonstrated as recently as 2022. Many people ended up in prison, some were executed. This is an appalling regime. We would all be better off if it were removed. But it is a matter for the Iranian people. It's not a matter for outside interference.
And of course, we've been there before, haven't we? When you were in the Labour government, Iraq and then Afghanistan, it's clearly there's always a risk there in trying to assert, Western values on people that may not be ready for them yet. So we have to go at their pace, I suppose, if this gets more serious and we go towards some form of regime change.
But the reason why we should not intervene directly is because this is a matter for the Iranian people, and any outside interference would be seen by the regime as propaganda that they would then use against the demonstrators. These demonstrators are extraordinarily brave people. The women who demonstrated in 2022, the people out on the streets today are risking execution. This is something that requires huge courage, and we should not do anything that damages those demonstrations. And what would damage those demonstrations is the sense that somehow this was an Israeli or an American plot to overthrow the regime. They will use that as propaganda against the demonstrators.
But it's not helping, is it then, for Donald Trump to be saying the US is locked and loaded and ready to intervene if required militarily? That will just fuel that suggestion that the US is somehow involved.
I think that's the risk, although, frankly, I'm not quite sure I understood what exactly he meant, because one of the characteristics of Donald Trump is that he's made quite clear that he does not want to intervene internationally. So I can't see any prospect of American soldiers on the ground in Iran. And as I say, these demonstrators are extraordinarily brave people, and we should allow them, frankly, to take the kinds of risks that they're taking without us overtly interfering. That would damage their cause in a way that isn't acceptable.
And in terms of Ukraine, if peace comes to Ukraine, Iran could be the next flashpoint to be watching out for this year.
Well, I'm optimistic about the prospects for democracy everywhere. Fortunately, in my limited experience of dealing with the so-called government in Iran, they don't really have any power. The real power lies with the clerics, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They're the ones who call the shots. And the reality is they have been prepared to be brutal with their own people in order to put down demonstrations of this kind. And the longer this goes on, the more it spreads. Frankly, sadly, the more likely that brutality is.
Jeffrey, while I've got you, you're a former Labour cabinet minister. There are question marks already about the leadership of Sir Keir Starmer this year. One respected commentator is saying there could be a challenge in the next 8 weeks. What's your advice to your former colleagues in Parliament?
Keep calm. I do not believe that it is in anyone's interest, in the Labour Party, for the government, and frankly for the country, to be involved in the kind of musical chairs that we saw with the last Conservative government. No one would take seriously the prospect of a challenge to a leader who was elected with an overall massive majority at this stage in the Parliament. So keep calm. Let's take whatever medicine we have to take if the elections in May are bad, but nevertheless work towards that next general election.
There were reports that at the time you organised a secret ballot of Labour MPs into the future of Gordon Brown. I don't know if you ever confirmed that, but should that happen? Should there be some form of testing of the party to see if you can get 81 Labour MPs who want a new leader, or just don't go there?
Just don't go there is my short answer. I think that we're in a very different situation from the one that we were in 2010. The reality is that Labour has a massive majority and it needs to work hard to correct the problems that the country and the people are suffering from. And I'm sure that Keir Starmer is absolutely committed to that.
And it's a time for New Year predictions, Jeff Hoon. Yes or no, will he fight the next election, your PM?
Yes.
There we are. I think I maybe agree with you on that as well. It's hard to remove leaders, and I think after the chaos of the Tory period, Labour may want to look at that and reflect. Thank you for joining us tonight, Jeff Hoon. Great to see you, and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Now, what does 2026 have in common, apart from the future of Sir Keir Starmer in our politics? I'm joined by the polling guru, Lord Hayward, for his predictions. Don't go anywhere.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, here at Holbrook Animal Rescue, they're being forced to relocate, and if they can't find a suitable alternative, they'll even be at risk of closing. And I've seen the amazing work that they've done here. Just earlier we met a dog called Essie who has just found her almost possible forever home literally in the time that we were here. She only came here a couple of days ago, so it's really great work that they do for all animals. Like this one here, this is Torn, he's just a puppy, and I'm also joined by Laura Santini, who runs the shelter. Tell us a bit about Torn here.
So this is just a little fellow that came in, no fault of his own. The people just couldn't cope with him. So he's lively, and he's a half shepherd, half Labrador.
What kind of impact would the possible relocation or even closure have on dogs like this one and all the other animals you have here?
Well, simply that we wouldn't be able to take them. So if the next one comes up like this and we've got nowhere to go, then we just can't take them, obviously. So what happens to them at that point, I don't know, because we don't just take beautiful pups like this. We take the old and the sick and the dogs that other people don't necessarily want to take. So I can't imagine what would happen to some of them. So I don't know. It's sad. It's just a sad situation.
And you've had quite a lot of support from the community here in trying to relocate. What's been there for you in terms of support?
They're absolutely incredible. They've sent 1,000 letters into the council to try and support us and help us and let everyone see the light that, you know, you do actually need animal sanctuaries around. You can't shut them all down. We're always getting phone calls saying how much people like what we do and hope we get our planning appeal when it goes through and things like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Matt Goodwin with me, Christopher Hope, on GB News. Now, Sir Keir Starmer's leadership is set for a major test next May, with a leading polling expert warning Labour could suffer significant losses across the UK. The pollster, Lord Hayward, has predicted heavy defeats in the English council elections, the loss of power in the Welsh Senedd for Labour, and what he describes as a battering for the party in the Scottish Parliament on those elections on May the 7th, 2026. That's this year, of course. Such a bruising set of results would be like to reignite questions that Jeff Hoon was dodging in the last part of the show about Sir Keir Starmer's grip on power. Joining me to discuss now what he thinks may happen is that Tory soothsaying peer himself, Lord Hayward. Robert, great to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. So what's going to happen in May? A bad night for the two main parties, possibly?
Absolutely. It will be a bad night for the Tories, no question about that.
but it will be a worse night almost certainly. And I hate doing predictions this far out.
Oh, go on. Go on.
Because politics has the capacity to swing in all sorts of directions. But as you just said, my expectation is, and I think it's the general expectation within the Labour Party, that they are going to face a massive battering in Scotland and Wales and in a number of authorities where they have power at the moment in England.
Well, let's take those three big election areas in turn, England, Scotland and Wales. England first. How many seats are up for grabs and how many do you think, say, Reform might win, going on current polling?
Well, I said I'm not willing to make predictions. We don't even know how many seats are up for grabs at the moment, because, to be honest, in a quite disgraceful state of affairs where I and other people in both chambers have been asking the government to identify where the elections are going to be, they suddenly on December the 18th told councils, take a decision by January the 15th. Now, that doesn't mean we'll get a decision on January the 15th. That means they get responses by January the 15th. In theory, there are several thousand council seats up. But I and you and everybody else, I don't even think government ministers know how many seats will be contested across.
Well, the reason
England.
why is that the government says they're minded to go with what the councils want to happen, which suggests that any who say they want to delay will be allowed to delay. And democracy delayed is democracy denied for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
It is, but you've had Tory authorities say they don't want to. They want to delay. Some, not many. The Tory party nationally has said they want to go ahead. Liberal Democrats in Cheltenham have said they want to delay, and loads of Labour councils have also said they want to delay. Places like Blackburn and the like in Lancashire. So, and the problem is, you could not have a position whereby, let's say, a council in Lancashire, district council, says we don't want an election, and then there are other elections nearby. It gets so complex that you could not do it, and certainly in... massive confusion at this stage.
Okay, so we're stepping back from that. We'll find out what's going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks' time. But in terms of what you expect, you think Reform will do well? I mean, Nigel Farage is talking a big game.
In England, no question, Nigel Farage will do well. And probably more at the expense of the Tories than the Labour Party in most places, but not necessarily all of them. But in England, one shouldn't forget the one set of places we know their elections are going to be are in the big cities, the Birminghams, the Leeds, the Manchesters, but in the London boroughs. And in those places, the indications are that the Greens will do very well, pro-Gaza independents will do well, Lib Dems, and it's even possible that the Conservatives could gain councils like Westminster off the Labour Party. So a cacophony of victors at the expense of Labour in the authorities we know where there are going to be elections.
And that could explain why Nigel Farage is spending some of that £9 million he was donated before Christmas by love bombing the donut around London, where, of course, Boris Johnson did so well when he was trying to be London mayor. Also, he's bombarding people living in Scotland and Wales. So moving to Scotland, what do you expect there? I mean, I expect Labour to be reaching out to Reform voters. When I was working up there for a different newspaper, there's a unionist independence narrative which is not seen down here, where people vote for the best likeliest to win unionist party in their area, and that could be Labour, not Reform, for example.
Yes, it could be. Just coming back partly to England, but picking up and following the thread in Scotland, one of the things that's striking about what Nigel Farage is doing at the moment is he isn't saying, look what we've achieved. Great play about taking control of Kent or Lancashire or Nottinghamshire or Staffordshire. And at the moment, he's not saying, look what we've achieved, because, to be honest, Kent, for example, is a complete mess. So what he's trying to do is say, we'll have a go at Sadiq Khan, we'll have a go at Labour in Scotland and the like, but not... So in Scotland... Labour should have the opportunity, given the mess that the SNP have got themselves into, to take over from the SNP. But if it's a competition for who's in a bigger mess, at the moment it appears to be Labour in Scotland rather than the SNP.
So you think
the
SNP might hold on,
be able to get away with their difficulties.
That's because the unionist vote is split. And just finally to Wales, they've got half a chance. The D'Hondt voting system means that you basically count up the number of votes and that equals the number of members of the Senate. That will help reform because tactical voting won't work in Wales, will it, against them?
I think it's more likely to help Plaid. We had the indication at Caerphilly with a strong candidate, and it isn't perfectly proportional. But I think, as with Scotland with the SNP, one of the other big victors could well be Plaid Cymru on the night on May the 7th.
So you don't think reform will win in Scotland or Wales, do you, it seems, from what you're saying here?
I do not see, and there are indications in council by-elections, particularly in Scotland, that people are now beginning to vote tactically against reform.
So wait and see how that plays out. Lord Hayward, the Tory peer and pollster, Robert Hayward, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it very much. To my panel now, of course, the former Conservative MP and Whip Minister Heather Wheeler, and the former and the political commentator, still is one, Kai Wilshaw.
News to me.
Thank you for joining us, Kai Wilshaw. Heather Wheeler, to you first. Kevin Badenoch says she wants his local elections to go ahead, but Tory councils are refusing to hold them. She looks weak.
There are two in Sussex that are saying that they already put in their bid for the unitary that they would not be holding these elections. They put that in their bid over a year ago. So it's no surprise they want to stick to that, because that is what they said they were going to do with regard to getting a mayor. I mean, if they don't hold the mayoral elections, then that makes the unitary argument slightly weaker. But that is, they are sticking to their word.
So the other ones then, they should be holding them?
I haven't heard of any others that are saying no.
We'll wait and see.
Indeed.
Kai Wilshaw, what are Labour running scared of? Why are they delaying democracy? It's outrageous, right?
It is pretty outrageous, but I think, actually, giving the power back to the councils is the right thing to do. It's just such a shame that it's happened so late, and I think the mistake that Labour has made in government is to not really grasp the scale of the issues that they're facing and not get to grips with things sooner. And that's what you're seeing here, is that it's got to this stage that it seems to be a complete havoc. When, in fact, the intention, I think, was bang on.
Yes, so what they want to do is simplify counties and districts. I mean, I've no idea which one collects my bins. I'm not sure many viewers or listeners do.
Absolutely.
But that does matter, doesn't it, in terms of holding power to account?
Yes, and, Keir Starmer, if you cast your mind back to his speech on the steps of Downing Street where he promised that politics would tread lighter on people's lives, I'd imagine that's where maybe changes like this have come from. But it's... as often with this particular government, the delivery has been suboptimal, to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least, because, I mean, I'm old enough, as you both are, probably, you are, Heather. Back in 1997, Scots voted for their own parliament. Yeah. The parliament was up and running by February 1999, because I was there to cover it for the Scotsman newspaper. Why can't they sort out this shake-up and not delay vital votes for councils?
It's not like there are fewer civil servants helping out, is there?
There's more. There's more.
Indeed. So, I mean, I absolutely agree with you that if you believe in bringing in unitary authorities, if you believe that it'll make things more streamlined and therefore save money, for goodness sakes, get on with it. Yeah. And I mean, that's just a nonsense. So, no, I'm afraid they lost the plot.
The issue of tactical voting, Kai Wilshaw, was raised there, wasn't it, by Lord Hayward? I was there at the Caerphilly by-election. We're pretty sure it happened that some votes flipped applied to ensure a rather strong candidate got in for that party. Or are there already attempts by the left to organise against reform, anyone but reform, around the country?
I don't know that by May there'll be something organised, but we'll certainly see people instinctively deciding for a more left-wing party that has a chance. And in Wales, for instance, I'm Welsh, I'm from Cardiff, Plaid isn't quite as extreme seeming to voters as the SNP in Scotland, where a vote for Plaid is a vote for independence. It's certainly not. It's just a vote for a real sort of full-fat left-wing party. Yes. And I think Plaid will do exceptionally well. I think they will they'll win the most seats and form a government.
And in Scotland, Heather Wheeler, it's likely that the unionist parties may attract support, whichever flavour, Labour, Reform, or the Tories try and deal with the SNP.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some really good political friends up in Edinburgh, and they are working their bits off to try, and it's really interesting. The feedback they're getting on the doorstep, absolutely fascinating. So definitely keep an eye.
A big year for elections. Heather Wheeler, thanks for joining us. Stay with us, of course. And Kai Wilshaw, the political commentator, thank you both. Great to see you here. Now, after the break, a former senior number 10 aide has accused the Whitehall machine of chasing fringe causes instead of serious governing, as the PM faces fresh questions over his judgment about welcoming a controversial activist to Britain. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Although not quite as cold as the UK, it is still rather unsettled at the moment across the Mediterranean. Storm Francis is bringing rather wet and windy conditions to the Canary Isles, Madeira and even mainland areas of Iberia. Further towards the east, we have further heavy rain and mountain snow that's going to be building across the Balkan region as we head into Saturday as well. These generally unsettled conditions are quite likely to continue as we head throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to see accumulations over the highest ground, over the North York Moors, for example. But once again, inland areas will remain largely dry and bright throughout Saturday. A cold day, though. You will notice that chilly feel once again. Some areas not going to reach above 0 degrees by day, so definitely a day to wrap up nice and warm. And we'll see further snow showers across northwestern areas into Sunday. Actually, it's going to be a drier day across the east on Sunday, but another very cold night on Saturday night, and therefore a very cold day throughout Sunday as well. We could see some more snow moving into the southwest once again, so further cold weather to come next week, and into Tuesday we could see some more potentially widespread snow.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, former number 10 aide has hit out at politicians and civil servants who he says obsess over fringe causes at the expense of delivering for the British people. Writing in the Times, Paul Ovenden, who served as Director of Strategy in Sir Keir Starmer's number 10 until quitting late last year, lamented his decision to welcome the Egyptian activist Alaa Abd El Fattah to Britain last month, despite his past calls for violence against police, Holocaust denial, and describing himself as a violent person. Mr. Ovenden described this case as symbolic of officials and campaigners obsessing with fringe issues, a long way from what the ordinary voters want to hear about. The controversy has reunited wider questions about Labour's judgment in power. And joining me to discuss this is Andrew Gilligan, who served as a political advisor in Number 10 under 2 Tory Prime Ministers. Andrew, great to join us tonight on GBN Tonight. How can Whitehall become so out of touch, do you think? I mean, do you agree with what Paul Ovenden said?
I do. And the point about this isn't just the first time this has happened. It's the 20th or 30th time this has happened. For decades, the British state has enabled, legitimised, worked with, sometimes even funded bigots and extremists, people who want to destroy us. It's a kind of pathological problem in government. Every so often there'll be some new bad guy exposed. Sometimes they'll be cast aside, sometimes they won't be. But nobody ever seems to learn the lessons, and there's always another one along later.
Well, why is it then that officials can disregard remarks calling Brits, you and me, others here, dogs and monkeys, and for Zionists to be killed? Why do officials overlook these things about the country he purports to support and want to be part of when he's out the country? Why not just say, well, you can't say that, mate, you're not going to get in?
There's a long tradition in the British state of kind of working with bad people to try to use them against the really bad people, if you like. So they've tried to kind of, that maybe they saw him as somebody like that. I remember doing stories like 15 years ago now about the government wanting, or some people in the government wanting to work with Al Muhajiroon, Anjem Chowdhury's mob that were responsible for dozens of terrorists, and of course Chowdhury himself is now serving life for directing a terror organisation. But there were officials in government as late as 2010 saying we should work with this guy because he's a bulwark against the real extremists, and that attitude carried on through the years. No amount of embarrassment or stupidity seems able to stop it.
And it's not on them, it's on the elected politicians who go along with it. It's, in this case, Keir Starmer, or it's Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary. The risk isn't really, it seems to me, on the officials so much as the politicians. I mean, how do you square that? Is it time for politicians to be much tougher, to have the bonfire? Like Dominic Cummings said these remarks, didn't he, when he was working probably with you in Number 10 Downing Street? I think you may have been there at the same time. He was calling for this revolution, and we said, what are you talking about, mate? What's that about? But actually, going what this Labour character is saying, Paul Ovenden, the Ovenden window is changing.
That's right. Look, I mean, I think they came into power thinking that the only problem, the system was basically functional, and the only problem was the wrong people were in charge, and all that was needed was to replace the bad people, i.e. us, with the good people, the grown-ups in the room, like i.e. them, and all will be well. They found out that isn't true. The system is dysfunctional. It doesn't prioritise what voters want, as Ovenden was saying, and to coin a phrase, the phrase he used, it is time for politicians to take back control. And they can do so. But, let's not minimise the difficulty that will be. There'll be huge amounts of scrutiny from the usual suspects.
And that's what we're hearing from Reform UK. Tonight we hear that with the OBR might be axed if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister. But this stakeholder state, he called it a complex coalition of campaign groups, regulators, litigators, trade bodies, well-networked organisations. The blob, I think the Tories described it when you were there. Wasn't Brexit about giving back control to politicians? And isn't it incumbent on them just to get rid of these unelected bodies and start governing and then delivering on what they say they'll do in manifestos?
One of the key reasons behind Brexit was a feeling that governments didn't really control events, and the government didn't control the government. And actually, I think the focus on the EU, the EU was part of the reason, but a much bigger part of the reason was the way that politicians have given away power domestically to quangos and regulators, activists and lawyers and the courts. Now, look, I don't want to sweep all that away, right? Because I think there are some things in that are valuable and some things that protect us. And I'm worried if it all gets swept away, if like they sack all the judges or something like that. Even the OBR, bluntly, even the OBR protects us to some extent from bond market meltdowns. If you don't, look what happened to Liz Truss when she decided to ignore the OBR. I think the way the OBR works isn't very good and needs to be changed, but I'm not sure I want to sweep it away entirely. But I would sweep away a great deal else of the Quango state and a great deal else. And ministers have got to have the courage to take decisions for themselves.
Andrew Gilligan, of course, from the Policy Exchange. Thank you so much for joining us, and there's more of what Andrew has to say in today's Spectator magazine. Thank you for joining us. Happy New Year to you. Still with me, the panel, of course, the former Tory MP and Minister Heather Wheeler and the political commentator Kai Wilshaw. Heather Wheeler, you must have come up against the blob, the unelected blob, taking taxpayers' money in some ways to frustrate the work of elected politicians. Why didn't you get rid of this lot when you won power?
Well, I was really proud of the time in the Cabinet Office working with Jacob Rees-Mogg. We set our Principal Secretary a 10% reduction in staffing. We went to a 25% reduction in staffing. And we used that to say to the other departments, look, we've done that in our department, so come on, guys, you can do it. Thinking, well, at least they'd get the 10% done, but they didn't.
Well,
so.
A round of applause for you, Heather Wheeler, but now you're not in power anymore. I mean, Kai Wilshaw, how can Labour do what Heather Wheeler says, get a grip of civil service and deliver what Paul Overton says isn't happening?
I think it's an odd situation to be in, isn't it? Because something that Richard Tice said recently in a Bloomberg event about how they would plan for governing is, he said, look, Labour have it really difficult now because they didn't do lots of the preparatory work beforehand. So how do they... And now they're way too busy because government... It turns out you have a lot going on. Yeah. Labour need to find a way now of... And there's different Labour groups at the minute working on competing visions for the Prime Minister, this one or the next. And what the Labour government should do is try to, as best they can, build the bicycle while they're riding it, and discover this vision as well as a bit more of a muscular strategy for how to get power done in departments. And they should have done that beforehand, but they don't have that luxury anymore.
Yeah. OK, thank you for joining us both again, Kai Wilshaw and, of course, Heather Wheeler. Now, in response to the story, the Home Office referred us to the Foreign Secretary's letter to the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Commons on the issue of Mr El Fattah. And they added there is no grounds to reject an application on character requirements. Removing someone's British citizenship can only be used against those who obtained citizenship by fraud and against the most dangerous people like terrorists, extremists and serious organised criminals. There we are. Now, what makes for a good festive message from political leaders? They're clogging up my inbox and my X account. I'll be asking my panel for how to keep interested in what they've got to say. Stay tuned.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, with me, Christopher Hope. Now, what makes a good festive message from political leaders? Let's remind ourselves how the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, addressed the nation yesterday.
Things have been tough in Britain for a while. For many, life is still harder than it should be.
Hey, that's enough of that. I think he did meant to say Happy New Year at some point later on, but it's pretty gloomy. Others chose a different tone. Here's what Giorgia Meloni said. There we have it. The Italian Prime Minister shared this image on X, posing in front of a Christmas tree and smiling. And the US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, also sharply criticised his political opponents on Christmas in his message, referring to them as radical left scum, while the Argentine President Javier Milei concluded his festive message by declaring Merry Christmas in freedom. Well, we can all agree with that, I think. But how do those festive messages compare, and what's the secret behind a strong message? Joining me here on the panel is the former Tory MP and Minister Heather Wheeler and a political commentator, Kai Wilshaw. To you first, Heather Wheeler, did you ever try this difficult area of getting the right tone over New Year?
Yeah, and it's an absolute pain in the neck. Your staff hate it doing it. It's really awful. So you have this juxtaposition between motherhood and apple pie, being really, really political, or trying to just say something nice and you know,
and nothing
stroking
works.
a cat or something. No, it don't work.
I mean, given those three things you're trying to hit, you probably fell between all those different stools.
Totally. I mean, it'd much better just go down the pub and be nice to people.
Yeah, why are we doing this, Kai Wilshaw? I mean, what's the point? Well, I mean, he's Nigel Farage, and he's the anti-politician. He did one over in Greenwich.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned the pub, right? Why don't more people do exactly as they would?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Something I've enjoyed watching recently is, if you follow Mike Tapp, the immigration minister, who's almost memified himself a little bit.
He doesn't care, though, Tapp.
But he doesn't care, and he keeps going, and he puts the pictures up of him and his dog at the pub or whatever. I think having a bit of fun, being authentic, which is a horrible word,
Do you think
but
it's still a pub you can go into?
Is good. Well, exactly. I'm sure the pubs would let Mike Tapp in. He seems to be doing an all right job.
Or a barber to cut his hair.
No,
but wait and see on that. But yeah, I mean, for me, so much politics is governed by the last century, like a long speech. I mean, who does speeches anymore?
No. Well,
that's just don't do it. They have graphs and they have.
Chemist was 40 seconds. Yeah. And that was just fine.
Yeah.
40
and
seconds.
she mentioned the World Cup in it.
Absolutely.
She actually meant to try to be human in it. I thought it was quite...
smiled.
And smiled.
Because really what everybody wants to know is that this is not a complete basket case. This country has a future, and we really have got to believe in that, because if we don't, then I really
I do think the politics is missing that. I think ordinary people away from politics are they're getting on. It's difficult. It's difficult with the taxation regime here, but it's getting on. I mean, Kai Wilshaw, what's your advice to these politicians in the next year's New Year's message? Or how would you frame it?
Well, I think for MPs, which is different to the Prime Minister,
Stop doing it, you say.
they need to try things out, be a bit bolder, different social media ideas, why not, and be yourself, right? That's one thing. But then the Prime Minister needs to pull out some of the stops. I think he needs to be more forceful, stronger in his
rhetoric. Miserable. I'm page listed this stuff. It was really miserable.
Why is he doing it in a press conference room or whatever? Nigel Farage had the right idea. Use the levers of the state to your benefit.
Well, he went there. He talked about the Navy and Britain ending slavery in the 19th century and that kind of thing, or the 18th century. But I thought that was the narrative he was trying to say.
But we've all seemed to have forgotten that Starmer had all these voice coaching, didn't he, over COVID? I mean, it didn't seem to have done him any good at all. Has he forgotten all that?
That was proven. That may have been a rumour.
Have you seen the bills?
OK, well, they had some advice on a presentation. But what would you do if you were advising him? You'd say, get out, because he says he's quite relaxed in a pub, isn't he? He plays football with his mates. Why not do it there?
Do a bit of that, a bit of the honest, real Keir Starmer that we keep being told about by MPs, but then also go somewhere majestic, somewhere really, truly British. Give people a sense of what you're trying to achieve and show it.
The White House of Dover.
Well, exactly.
No more boats shall pass, like Gandalf. That's what I would do.
Keir can commute Starmer.
It's like Gandalf. No more small boats. We can't say it, can he, Heather Wheeler?
I can say King Canute.
Remind people of some of the Britain's glories that can yet still be achieved in the future.
Thank you, my panel. Thank you to Kai Wilshaw, of course, and Heather Wheeler. Thank you, everyone, for watching our show tonight. Over in Paddington, it's my pal Patrick Christie tonight. I can't wait to see what he's got coming up. Patrick, over to you.
Well, we're joined this evening by a wonderful live studio audience. Hello, everybody. There we go. Thank you very much to everyone who's made the journey and made the trip. The first live audience show of the year. Loads on tonight. So, an Islamist killer has won £240,000 worth of taxpayers' cash. Thank you very much, David Lammy. Why didn't he bother to appeal that? Anyone here particularly keen to let Shamima Begum come and live with them? No, I didn't think so either. There's a bloke on the front row. Well, there you go, mate. You can volunteer. Well, I've got a sneaky suspicion that she might come back. We've got all of that, New Year's resolutions, and find out why ITV's Adil Ray is facing calls to be sacked again. All of that next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to see accumulations over the highest ground, over the North York Moors, for example. But once again, inland areas will remain largely dry and bright throughout Saturday. A cold day, though. You will notice that chilly feel once again. Some areas not going to reach above 0 degrees by day, so definitely a day to wrap up nice and warm. And we'll see further snow showers across northwestern areas into Sunday. Actually, it's going to be a drier day across the east on Sunday, but another very cold night on Saturday night, and therefore a very cold day throughout Sunday as well. We could see some more snow moving into the southwest once again, so further cold weather to come next week, and into Tuesday we could see some more potentially widespread snow.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE